our man Ben Shapiro, as he says in this clip we're about to play, he blew up the internet by being a little twerp, suggesting that old people need to work longer, and also coming after Social Security, which comes after Donald Trump, very stupidly, in my opinion, just pragmatically from a political perspective, suggested that actually, yes, he told CNBC, yes, there are ways that we can cut Social Security and Medicare, which is CNBC has been slobbering for those cuts. And the thing that people liked about Trump was that he was willing to tell CNBC, no, you owe that to people. You're not taking it away from them. So Ben Shapiro jumps in and sees an opportunity to go back to this old conservative canard of we're going to do this. We're finally going to come for these entitlements. Let's play a little bit of our man Ben Shapiro.
So yesterday, I apparently blew up the internet. I blew up the internet because of something that I said on this show. What exactly did I say that blew up the internet? Well, I touched the political third rail. I talked about Social Security. Now, I know what you're thinking. What's so spicy about Social Security? And I will admit, I was thinking the same thing because there are a few simple facts of the matter with regard to Social Security. One, we don't have the money for it, and it's a Ponzi scheme. And two, with regard to sort of the personal decision to retire, very often when people retire, they're making a bad decision. And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president. Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old. The retirement age in the United States at which you start to receive Social Security and you are eligible for Medicare is 65. Joe Biden has technically been eligible for Social Security and Medicare for 16 years, and he wants to continue in office until he is 86, which is 19 years past when he would be eligible for retirement. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years. And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. It was an attempt to get older workers off the payrolls to make room for younger workers. The first kind of full Social Security scheme was put in place by Otto von Bismarck in Germany and was a way of clearing the older payrolls of older workers because they weren't as effective. And in fact, older workers fought it.
All right, there's a lot going on there, Ryan.
Yeah, and first of all, he could just have Googled Social Security retirement age. It's 67. They bumped it up.
That's correct.
It's not 65.
Right.
Just a weird mistake in there. Secondly, and I think we can put we have this next
the community note
element up here. Good community note. One of the reasons that you have such low life expectancy from back in the day is infant mortality.
That's exactly right.
You go back and look at during the time of the founding of the country, life expectancy is like 40 or something insane.
And you're like, what?
How's
People
that
only
possible?
live till 40?
And then you're like, wait a minute, but Ben Franklin was like 80 years old when he's signing that. How is this possible? And it turns out that when you read further, they had 10 children, only 5 lived past the age of 3 or 4, and you're like, oh, I see. So the average is a mess. Now, if you make it into adulthood, then your life expectancy at the time was, close to 69. Basically, it hasn't risen much. And actually, life expectancy over the last couple of years is dipping back downwards. So, he should actually adjust his talking points
Let me
we're
add
headed
on to something
direction.
like that. Often people will say that's because of COVID. That is absolutely not true. We've done multiple monologues here on the subject. It has been ticking down since 2017, and unfortunately, it's actually fentanyl.
Yes,
one of the
overdoses.
major reasons.
Because you're losing 100,000 people plus a year
You have
at the age of 20 or 21.
Exactly. So you have fentanyl being the number one cause of, or overdose being the number one cause of death for people who are, 20 to 55 prime-aged working years. On top of, you have horrible chronic health conditions and obesity. So you put that all together, our society is on like a Soviet-esque decline.
But separately, let's talk about the lack of any imagination in the mind of Ben Shapiro. I think it is true that there are people who get their meaning through their routine of going to work and coming home then the weekend and then they retire and they're lost. I think he's.
It's probably more true for people like us. Right.
Even people who work manual jobs.
No, I'm saying
lives,
though that's kind of an important distinction, and that kind of gets me to the Shapiro element.
But the answer to that is not to say, well, don't ever stop that routine and drive yourself until you are in the grave. It is, well, what's wrong with all of this? Let's find more spiritual value, and spiritual doesn't have to be religious at all. Let's just find more meaning in our daily lives, in our social relations, in the way that we not just work but also play, and the way that we kind of love each other as a community, as a family, et cetera. Like, let's have better lives our entire lives.
One of the reasons why I think retirement age is so, retirement, Social Security, and all that is so imperative is that we have a huge manual labor underclass in this country, of which their body literally gets broken down.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the poverty statistics from the 1930s, it is horrifying. I know that in Annie and all of those, it's like it kind of popularizes this image that it was working age people who were in Hoovervilles, and that is certainly true to some extent. But a lot of the people who were starving to death and dying, they were just old.
Yes.
They were pensioners. I mean, but I mean that they went broke, their bank were gone, and these people, guys, they died of literal starvation because they were so poor and they could not go or even qualify under this. And then finally, there's a basic aspect of fairness. I've been paying in this damn program my entire life. Every time I look at my paycheck, I remember the very first time I got paid.
What is that?
And I said, what the is this FICA shit, you know? And then I was like, oh, it's Social Security. I'm like, okay, but that's part of the thing is that every American who works in this country, we have paid into this system, fairly or not. You can say reform, et cetera. I'm like, no. You took a hell of a lot of my money over the years, not even close to what I'm going to get back out of it. At the very least, I'm going to get something. So the idea that it's going to get abolished is completely outrageous.
And the idea that it's a Ponzi scheme is also just factually incorrect. Like, ask Ben Shapiro, name another Ponzi scheme that hasn't missed a payment in 81 years. Like, it's a sustainable program.
Right.
And and you know how I can say that? We have sustained it for 81 years. We can continue to sustain it. If you need to make some tweaks and Ben Shapiro has to pay a little bit more into it to help some other people, fine. That's different. But to your point, there is still a word kind of in our vernacular that comes from that period before Social Security, and the word is the poorhouse.
Yes, that's right.
You would hear it from your parents or your grandparents. You're going to put me in the poorhouse. The poorhouse was an actual thing, and it was basically a charitable-run organization. Sometimes it would get a little bit of money from the town or from the city or the state, where when elderly people who could no longer make income, they would just get put in the poorhouse. These were the most decrepit, disgusting, degrading, undignified places that you could put elderly people. And the other place, and I interviewed Dingell about this, whose father was the author of the Social Security Act. He said when he was a kid, his house was filled with Dingels and other Polish relatives. What would happen is everybody would just move into a house that had a little bit of room. That was it. You had the poor house, and you had elderly people moving in with whatever cousins, nephews, nieces, or grandchildren, or anybody else that could take them in. If that's how you want to do it, like if you want to have a multi-generational home where you know the people, the mom and the dad are supporting the children and the grandparents, go ahead. You should do that if you want to do it. Everybody was forced to do it. Social Security is around the world the greatest poverty reduction program that has ever existed in human history.
Let me talk specifically to that. 40.2% of people who are older and eligible for Social Security, their only income is Social Security.
Those people were headed to the poorhouse.
Yeah, they'd be dead. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to die.
Poorhouse.
Like, they literally are going to die without Social Security and Medicare. Now, I want to be clear. That's not a good situation. And if you are my age or your age, Ryan, please save for retirement. Please, I'm begging you, because you don't want to be in this position. That said, 40% of the country is. So clearly we're screwing up, and we've done a hell of a lot wrong in terms of setting and financially educating people. But it is what it is. What are you going to let these people just die, in complete in obscurity and in poverty?
You cut a couple $100 from them just to save Ben Shapiro money on his taxes. The choices that they then have to make are just brutal.
It's devastating.
And Ben would never have any idea about that type of a choice.
The other thing that they point out is that 40%, but actually more than 50% of people 65 or older receive at least 50% then of their income after age 67 from Social Security. So then now imagine that, as you just said, you cut $100, 5% doesn't sound like a lot. to you or I, when the price of eggs goes up by 20, yeah, it actually does make a huge difference. A lot of these people also live by themselves or, in a sole household. You couple that with a lot of these nursing homes and, the Medicare fraud and all that stuff that goes on. It's not an easy life to just be living purely on the government. Again, why I'm begging you, please take some responsibility and try and save for retirement. But if you do find yourself in this situation—
After you've paid for your Breaking Point sub, though.
Yeah, right, of course. I would never advise that. But
yeah, save first.
You don't want to be in this position, and I really hope that nobody is. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But we have to deal with reality. 40, 50% of the country is living in this position. Well, now what? I think we have, look, we have a well-defined program here. And again, all those people, at least, the way the program is designed, they paid into it. We're all paying into it. It would be outrageous to rob us of the similar thing. It also comes to a matter of emphasis, which is what Mike Cernovich kind of put, and I really love this framing. Let's put this up there on the screen. He says, reminder, Ben Shapiro advocated for every war in the Middle East. When the rich kids of D.C. that America can't afford foreign aid and foreign wars, then we can maybe talk about making grandma starve. Until then, no thanks. I totally agree. You want to save money? The Biden administration just put out a defense budget of $842 billion. $842 billion. That would be almost nearly $100 billion increase in what, just 5 years? Yeah. That's a lot of money, right?
That is a lot of money.
It seems easy to cut there, isn't it?
And if Biden were smart, and he would lean into this, and you are seeing the Biden campaign hitting Trump on this. And you've actually seen the Trump campaign. One of their responses was they tweeted out an article of mine that I wrote in 2020 that said that Joe Biden has been trying to cut Social Security for 40 years.
Yeah,
and it's true, he was, but he is a politician. And he saw which way the wind is blowing. There are now about 210 Democrats who have signed on to a Social Security expansion bill in the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi kept it off the floor because she is at heart an Austerian and it probably would have passed if she would just put it on the floor. John Larson's bill. That's political gold for Democrats. Say no. Not only
what kind of expansion? What does it do?
It means like on the lower end, 50% and below would get actually more Social Security in their checks, and then it closes some of the tax loopholes in order to make and it makes it sustainable for like another 50, 75 years. But people like Ben Shapiro would have to pay more in. And so people like Ben Shapiro would rather it be cut and you just keep working. But he's trying to pretend he's actually doing it for your own good because spiritually and psychically he's just nervous about your soul.
Well, this is crazy. So I didn't even realize this. The average Social Security benefit in 2023 is $1,700 a month.
Right.
I don't even know how you survive on that.
Where are you even going to get? Yeah,
right.
Like,
can you even pay rent on $1,700?
No,
I mean, I get in a medium to high cost of living area, that's going to be stretching it. That's really tough. You got to live in a rural place if you want to make it on food and on housing.
Which then it's hard to get around.
Right.
The whole thing is
what a nightmare.
People are screwed.
You can't. There's no way you're making a car payment on $1,700 with all those other things too. That's another thing. Let me just advocate for: buy your house, make sure you pay off your mortgage, and make sure you have retirement.
And it's another. And this is something that doesn't get talked about enough in the squeeze on the economy. So many people our age are helping their parents out.
That's true. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. Well, look, as you can see,
you do it because you
we're not talking
about— It's the right thing to do, but it hurt. It's
these
tough.
people are not living high on the hog? Is that they're not living high on the hog here? We're talking about $1,800 for an average check. Let's say a married household, that's still only $3,600. I mean, that's what is that? $3,600. It's like 40 grand or something like that after tax. That's below the average income actually for a household in the United States. So just a reminder, and remember what really this program is, what the implications of all of that would look like. I understand, people don't want to pay or think it's unfair and all of that. And I think there's still a lot we could do in terms of making the Social Security benefits actually go a lot farther and gives people some optionality. But the program itself is 100% gold and it should stay where it is.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.